Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled February meeting of the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency. I would ask that our secretary call the roll.
Commissioner Hopper?
Here.
Commissioner Porter?
Here.
Commissioner Warwick? Here. Commissioner Allgood?
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Here. Commissioner Allgood is joining us via Zoom, but all the other commissioners are present in the meeting room with us. I would ask, as I always do, if there's any conflict of interest for any of the agenda items for any members of the commission. Hearing none, I would note that Commissioner Wagner has joined us, so we now have a full contingent of the commission here. I'm not aware of any special presentations tonight, but is there anyone in the public that would like to address the Urban Renewal Agency on any topic? Seeing none, takes us to the consent calendar. I would ask for a motion concerning the disposition of the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Porter.
I would move that we adopt the consent calendar as printed.
Move for adoption of the consent calendar by Commissioner Porter and second by Commissioner Ramirez. Is there any discussion? Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Porter?
Yes.
Warwick? Yes. Wagner?
Yes.
Allgood?
Yes.
Ramirez?
Yes.
Hopper?
Yes. Okay, that takes us to old business and Mr. Fultz with our economic development activity report.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, thank you again for the opportunity to present our activity for the past month. I will hit on some of the highlighted projects as we have worked on for the month of January 2021. We continue to work with the Ball Venture Allquest on the North Ranch project. We're working with a number of leads for them. As you recall, the northern portion of that property is zoned M1 light industrial. So we're working with, or at least I'm working with currently 6 potential industrial warehousing distribution facilities at that site. Generally, they range in size from about 60,000 square feet up to 500,000 plus square feet for leads that we received from the Idaho Commerce Department, as well as leads from the Boise Valley Economic Partnership and self-generated leads on those. Mr. Jenkins is working on some as well, and he'll present that in his report as well. Wolf Development, this is a group again that is out of Spokane, Washington. They were the ones that purchased what was the former Van Acker piece in the Sky Ranch Business Park. That would be the 17 acres off of Challenger Way. They have now closed, I believe, on the 2 residential properties that are off of Challenger Way, basically across the street from the Fresca Mexican food facility. One of the homes is already down, and they're making room for their next building, which will be a 260+ thousand square foot building. We had a very strong lead on that project. We thought we were going to be able to see a closing on that one. Unfortunately, at the 11th hour, they did withdraw. What was nice to hear was from the company, they said that the city was very cooperative in working with them. I think what it came down to was their timeline that they were working with. The building had not yet begun construction, and they needed to have a product into that facility prior to Black Friday in November, so the timeline was going to get very, very tight for them. Basically, all the entitlements were completed, and we had provided the assurance of a quick permit turnaround, and they still were somewhat anxious about meeting the deadline as far as the building goes. So with that, they did withdraw. I continue to work with their folks. We do have another lead that we're working on for that particular building. Again, that would be a lease. It would be a fairly significant sized opportunity at that building. I don't believe it would take the full 260+ thousand feet, but probably somewhere in the 150 to 200,000 square foot. So we continue to work with them on that development. We've seen a number of developers come through, most recently more on the manufacturing and warehousing distribution that I've had some discussions with that are looking for sizable parcels of land. Generally, they're looking for anywhere from 20 to 400 acres for future industrial growth. As you know, we're probably not going to find that today, at least the 400 acre currently in the city of Caldwell, but we are exploring other opportunities. So we continue to get looks from a number of different developers on that, and so the challenge ahead of us is to start looking and planning for where those sites are going to be, and how do we build necessary infrastructure to accommodate those types of needs. Another project, generally I don't do much on the residential side, but we have had a couple of folks that have come through that have shown some interest, and we want to see if we can assist them, as there is a need for multifamily within our community. Project Living is a new project with a out-of-state developer team that's looking for a multi-use development in downtown area. Most recently, they had started looking on the other side of 10th Avenue from downtown, as you're heading toward the college and following along the creek. We've had discussions with them about that site and a few other sites that they are looking at right now. Some of the sites are in the urban renewal district, some are not, but may be worth certain conversations down the road to maybe incorporate or to expand or not expand, but look at an additional allocation area for some of these developments, depending on what kind of capital investment I think they're looking at. We might want to take a look at those and consider those in the coming year or two. Continue work with Project White, and again, that is McCain Foods on the urban renewal property that we sold to them some time ago. As you know, that they had requested and been granted an extension till December for the construction of that facility. Most recent conversations I've had with them is that they are still proceeding forward. I don't know, Mr. Hilty, if you've heard any different from their legal staff, but in direct communication I've had with them, it seems that they are moving forward to try to meet or beat that deadline. Continue working with Freehold Development and Sky Ranch Business Park. They had maybe 4 or 5 lots remaining prior to this meeting. In discussions with them and working with them, I believe they have now all of their lots fully under contract. Maybe they may have 1 lot yet that has not fallen under contract, but it appears that Freehold Development and Jamie Hoover is their principal, one of the principal developers on that. They may be very, very soon out of land and working on that project, and certainly want to thank them and their efforts as they've worked in partnership with us in getting to where we are in that area. Project Rec is a group that is out of the Portland, Oregon area. They are very desirous of developing a recreation facility into the Caldwell market. They're looking at 3 to 4 acres. They will need that size of area so that they can do events, including track events, basketball tournaments, and a number of others. It's my understanding that they have sold, or at least they're under contract, selling their facility that they own in Portland, and again, have a desire here. So we've been showing them some opportunities for potential locations, and they've settled on a couple that would work for them, they think, within the urban renewal district. So as we get closer, I can give you further updates on that. Continue to work with prospective developers for downtown projects and concepts, and again, Mr. Jenkins will talk a little bit more about that. We continue to work with Treasure Valley Community College on the airframe and power plant program, the aircraft maintenance program. Again, they do have, we do have the building out there at 5001 Aviation. I've had recent discussions with Mr. Wharton and with Ms. Mitchell regarding, we're I think getting close to the point where we have a lease for that building to run by them for consideration. Again, I think that they're looking at beginning that program probably fall of this year or spring of 2022. They have a lot of things already lined up as far as equipment, an aircraft, and instructors for that position, for that program. So that seems to be moving nicely at this point. We've been working with Idaho Power on identifying ready sites for data center developments. Mr. Jenkins has been a huge help in putting the information together for that and getting that to them. And I don't know if they have an actual prospect at this point in time, but I think that that is something that they might be targeting. Frankly, it's not been an industry that we targeted just because it is a big investment, but and they do have quality jobs, but there are not a lot of jobs involved in that. But we will certainly work with our partners at Idaho Power to make a site available and ready for them. Working with the commercial realtor from Boise on light industrial user needing additional space, so they're considering a site in East Caldwell. 60,000 square foot facility is what they're looking at, and I actually had a call from them this morning, and I'm going to try to get with them tomorrow to see if we can finalize a deal on that. So looking forward to that. And then continue to work with the Eisenbergs. They have the 17 acres at Sky Ranch. And with a broker, they have a prospect that may be looking at a 135,000 square foot building, and that is the site, one of the sites that they have targeted. We have met with their brokerage firm a couple of times and had discussions, so that project seems to be coming along. But as always, none of the projects seem to be coming along as quickly as I would like, but we'll continue to work with them and see what we can, see if we can get the Sky Ranch area finished up here within the next few months to a year or so. So with that, stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wagner?
Thank you. I do have some questions, but not on any of these. And so if you don't want to answer, that's totally fine. But I was driving down the boulevard and went by so the boulevard and 43rd Avenue. Do you know, is there anything going on there? Is there any updates on that property?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that is property that is owned by Strider Group. As you probably know, they have for quite some time been looking at a number of different development opportunities there. One of the challenges that they ran into when they first purchased that is the extension of Arthur Street, which is, it really kind of cuts through the property. It's their vision to do some type of light industrial that would be on the railroad side of Arthur. And then they had talked about a multifamily kind of in that middle area, and then commercial at the front of the boulevard. We've had some discussions with engineering about the idea of a realignment of 43rd so it lines up with the lake and so we can get a controlled access point there. But most recently, it sounds like they may be more desirous of just kind of selling the property. It just doesn't seem to be moving as they had hoped, and I think they may have drawn their attention to other type of uses. As you know, they did buy 19 acres in Sky Ranch, and they put up those 3 buildings, 60,000 square foot each there. So that seemed to be kind of their focus. But as of now, there's not really been an update. Long answer, but no, it could have been just a short answer. Sorry about that.
Just quick follow-up. That property is within urban renewal area?
That is, I believe, in the urban renewal district. Yeah.
Have we ever looked at it, considered, because, yeah, I remember I was out there with Rob McDonald probably 4, maybe 5 years ago with Scott, walking that property. And I think we're gonna hit that issue every time somebody wants to develop is Arthur Street. Because not only do they have to give us the right of way, now you get to build the full street. I don't know, have we ever looked at the possibility if we could team up with whoever and either purchase the right of way or pay for some of the improvements or anything like that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have had some of those discussions. I know specifically more so on the realignment of 43rd to get the control, to get the light at the site. I don't know that we've had much discussion about any type of partnership on the Arthur extension because that was kind of required of them, obviously, at that point. But on the 43rd Street realignment, we have had some discussion. We may be able to assist with that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Holmes? Okay, thank you. Mr. Jenkins, it's your turn.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. Good to see you all in person this evening. First time in a long time, so happy to be here. So I'll just go through my January report, starting with Project Craft. This is a local brewing company, based out of the Boise area. They're looking here in Caldwell. They have a great following in the Treasure Valley, so we are excited that they have an interest in downtown Caldwell. We're looking at sites and, kind of found one that really fits their needs, so we're hopeful that they'll move forward with the downtown location in the very near future. With 712 Main Street, that is a building that's on the plaza. It's formerly owned by Bob Carpenter. That one is officially under contract with the developer from the Boise area. The developer is planning some apartment units upstairs on the upper level, and then a restaurant on the main level there. So we're excited for those plans to materialize. That'll be a great space, and obviously on the plaza, we're happy to fill that in. Project Swift, working with a developer that has an interest in purchasing 401 Main Street. This is the Swift building. The developer is based out of the Meridian area, has plans to, he's looking at multifamily use for it, as well as some office space in that facility there. Project Pellet, we're continuing to work with these folks, and they have narrowed down a couple sites in the Sky Ranch area. Actually met with one of the landowners in that area, so we're hopeful that will turn in the near future. As I told you last month, they are only interested in the Caldwell area, which is a good sign for us. So we're excited about that development. This is a 15 to 20 acre site that they're looking for, 80 to 100,000 square foot facility. And again, they're just doing a retail warehousing outfit there. So excited for that one. Project Aspire, as Mr. Foltz mentioned, this is some land that was previously owned by Freehold Development. They are working on a multifamily development in the Sky Ranch area. They're looking at market rate apartment complex there. Really nice rendering so far as from what they've shown me in the site plan and whatnot. So they're moving quickly on that one. They hope to get things underway as quickly as possible. So they want to move aggressively on this site, and I'm hoping for a summer breaking ground. So looking forward to that one as well. Bluebird Car Wash, I know many of us have seen the sign on 21st of Chicago for a long time, many months. They're committed to building that car wash. So in talking with those folks, they're moving forward with plans. Once the Maverick is built out, they said they want to provide development plans for that one. So they are committed to it. The lease has been signed, and they're going to get going here in the near future. Project Olive, this is a small retail shop out of the Boise area. They're looking for a downtown location as well. Extremely interested in the plaza. What we've seen downtown, this is kind of off script, but what we've seen is a high degree of interest in our area, which is phenomenal and challenging time in our economic history here in America. But it's just great to see that we have many folks that are still looking and still interested in our area amid all the issues that are out there with retail and commercial developments and whatnot. So that's good news for us. I'm working with the new owner of the Oaks Brothers Main Street Marketplace. Many of you may have seen some of the upgrades that have been undergoing with the old Maddie's Plaza location downtown. They're out there painting actually today, so a lot of upgrades and updates happening to that space. They're going to improve the facade and also working on some new retail tenants in there. So we have a couple leads that we're passing along to that location, and I know the new owner is working with a few as well. So new updates coming on that one shortly. And then Ideal Demolition Services, they closed on 8.2 acres in the Sky Ranch area on KCID in Linden. That was great news. I'm going to meet with David Aparicio, their owner, to develop plans for the site. They're looking at the corporate headquarters there and also some speculation buildings on the lower 4 acres of that parcel there. And then Project Remediate, this is a group out of Canyon County. They are still looking for some land to develop an industrial site for their organization. They'll be hiring 10 to 12 employees. They do remediation here in the valley. And I'm also working with the Los Angeles developer. They previously had 12 acres under contract out in the Sky Ranch area. Looks like they're back online with that particular site. So received a call from them that they're moving forward with plans on that one. So they're looking at speculation buildings on that 12 acres out there as well. And then lastly, the Canyon County Spuds, they have a team store on 212 South 4th Avenue. So if you need a Spuds decal, Spuds hoodie, Spuds t-shirt, tickets, anything like that, please pay them a visit. It's a merchandise store, but we're excited to have them in town. They've done a great job with marketing and advertising and really have a strong following here in the Valley, so we're excited to welcome them to Caldwell.
Bought my opening day tickets, so we're all set.
Oh, great to hear. And with that, Chairman, Commissioners, I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Any questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna run out of questions here in a minute.
So I was,
It's just so nice to be here, it really is. Bluebird Car Wash, so, yeah, I remember working with them years ago too. So, is that what's going on under construction right now, is it Maverick at the corner? And so Bluebird's gonna get moved down, I'm guessing, is that?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry to cut you off. Chairman, Commissioners, yes, absolutely. They moved their location from the Hart corner on the 21st, in Chicago, Avenue there, and they're going to locate the next parcel over. So, yeah, they kind of shifted things on site there.
Thank you.
good. Any other questions for Mr. Jenkins? Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much for the update. Mr. Hilton, are you covering the next item on the Chase proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. We have, as you are aware, a report tonight from the Chase Group on Creekside Development. As you recall, and just kind of put this in context, we had a discussion about some major issues on the site, design elements, not complicated issues or complications, regarding the new proposed layout for the progression of development, the location of the hotel. Talked about some residential products that would be acceptable to the commission. And then with sort of a high-level approval of those major design elements, the agency continued the exclusive negotiating agreement until actually the 15th, with the understanding that there'd be a presentation tonight. And really, I think the context of this is, if you are comfortable with what you see tonight, then I will be working with the attorney for the Chase on a development agreement here in the next, hopefully, 30 days. If we don't have issues that are resolved tonight, then I think there needs to be discussion about whether how we proceed or whether we proceed. And the hope tonight, though, was to present to you something that would be of sufficient detail that you could give it the thumbs up. We would take the next step with an eye towards seeing this project get off the ground. So I know Dean Pape, who you've met on multiple occasions, is here, and unless you have questions for me, I'm just going to turn it over to him.
Any questions for Mr. Hilton? No? Okay, Mr. Pape?
Good evening. I have a couple of associates that are actually joining us via Zoom, and I'm going to hand it to them first to go through some of the design elements. And then from there, I'd like to talk a little bit about the schedule and then the financial conditions that we're currently seeing on the project. And then, hopefully give you guys some insights on how we'd like to best move forward. So with that, Tom and/or Mark from GGLO will give some background and some updates on where we are planning-wise.
Sounds good, thanks, Dean. So Brent, if I could share screen, let me know.
Mark, go ahead. You should be able to now. Let me know if you can.
Perfect, thank you. All right. Assuming that that's up.
Up and looking good.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you very much. We are here after talking to you not that long ago, after submitting on this, I think close to a year ago. I think one of the things I want to say is that we're really excited that we've been able, through the iteration, to maintain the qualities that really help continue to fill in downtown in a way that creates a really vibrant, thriving downtown for Caldwell and building off of the Community Plaza. So you probably remember from some of the early studies that we did that the goal was to activate downtown, complement the alley and Arthur Street and Winter Wonderland and all the activities that's going on, and we feel pretty good about having done that. So these were some of the earlier studies that showed that and understanding how this plugs in as a continued activating year-round piece that has some transparencies and connects people. So you see on the right, we worked with you all a while ago when we worked on Indian Creek Plaza on how to develop some guidelines for repurposing buildings downtown, historic buildings, and developing new buildings that would be consistent with some of the historic buildings downtown. So you see this rendering on the left shows, obviously, the plaza, the skating ribbon, with the new project and how it could complement Winter Wonderland as the building itself, how it fits in with Burns, the Arthur Street extension, and really starts to complement the fabric of downtown. So getting into the plans just a little bit, consistent to what we talked about last time and Dean has been talking about on the right is the phasing plan. So we've got the mixed-use residential commercial part of it is phase one. And then eventually the hotel as a phase and the Arthur Street extension as a phase. We're not sure which one will come first, but ultimately all three will be in there. On the left, you see the layout, so Indian Creek Plaza, obviously, 7th Street, the Arthur Street extension to the creek, the building really fronting Main and 7th and holding the edge, including the eventual phased hotel on Main as a continuation of that storefront expression. And then it starts to open up just a little bit with the creek and complement the creek and frame the existing open space or park that wraps that with frontage that starts to do that as well. Getting into the ground floor plan, one of the things I think we've been able to do with the feedback that we've heard from you all is really create an active commercial storefront all the way around so that you see the existing Burns and then you see this red color. That indicates some sort of commercial and activating storefront with the yellow as the lobby. So you can see that except for a limited parking access off of Main, we've really got this vibrant, activating situation. And I think most, we'll call it renaissances that are going in on downtown, the ultimate is to have active storefront with housing above and have people in walking distance to shops and restaurants and stuff, and I think we're really accomplishing that here. So that gives you the first floor on the left. When you look at the next floor up on the right, there's an opportunity to have some of these spaces be office above or a mezzanine, and then the blue indicates live work as some sort of commercial hybrid, which provides some flexibility, and then the yellow is housing, and then we move up from there. One of the things I want to point out on these ground floor plans, we have the transparency of Arthur Street. We also were continuing the treatment and the special treatment of the alley of Indian Creek Plaza through the project, all the way out the other side. And we've been able, with the reconfiguration, to do the same thing coming through Main between the future hotel and the commercial and housing mixed-use project all the way to the creek. So that as the community members, people who live here, people who shop here, eventually people in the hotel, move back and forth from parking areas, for all the great things that downtown has to operate. It's very transparent, and there are nice, safe, well-lit, active places for people to walk through. So this is not a barrier in any way. Moving up, then we get into the upper floors, floors 3 and 4, and then you get the residential units. And then we start to get some open space. We're stepping down a little bit towards Burns and towards the creek to get some open space and to bring those together a little bit. And then you see the amenities, upper level amenities, which also spill out and face Arthur Street and activate. Before I go off of the plans, you see the level 5 plan or roof plan, Tom, I don't know if I missed anything that you want to chime in on.
Yeah, we'll see it in the elevations, but what you're seeing here is there's really no back to the building. All 4 sides have to present a front to their context, whether it's the park, whether it's Main, Arthur Street, or 7th. And that was kind of the fun part of all this now. And then, of course, as Mark said, breaking the block up because of Indian Creek Plaza, downtown has become very pedestrian. I mean, there's just lots of people walking, and to have a big block in order to break it up into really 3 blocks in this case. We really felt was really important. And also, as Mark said, bringing those textures and colors and of the ground plane where the pedestrians are through the building, we felt was really important. And then finally, at the ground level, we're not just having, you know, commercial space that is, we've added a lot of volume in the commercial space. And if we want to, you'll see in the elevations of how we brought in a lot of glass and opportunities for people when they're walking, they actually can see what's going on inside the commercial area on the corner.
Great, that's probably a good segue. So again, you see the overall and then getting into it. So this is a view of Main and 7th, and as Tom was saying, you start to see simple quality building with quality materials, and then this very open, transparent, active commercial storefront with opportunity to spill out, with lots of light, and then these pass-throughs through this, and we'll have another rendering of this as well. And then the creek is on this side, obviously. So the storefront, the building volumes start to have really an urban form that is similar and consistent to some of the character of the existing buildings.
Mark, can you go back one?
Yeah.
What we want to say here is this building is 1 floor shorter than the previous proposal. And the commercial space is actually taller and has more volume than the previous proposal. And so the idea is that this is more in scale with the buildings, and then also the retail or the commercial is bumped up in importance on this corner here in this proposal.
Yeah, a couple other things. We really want to keep the simple volume and rhythm to match some of the qualities of the existing buildings, but we are mixing it up a little bit. So you start to see on the creek side, there's a little bit more of a diverse character than on the more civic side, so to speak, and then we're using these materials to link them together. So with that, as we come around to the creek side, this is the future hotel. You can see how this creates a nice diversity of architecture. We're setting back, we have some improvements along the park and the creek, and then we have these amenities and a nice subtle changeover in materials, warmth of some wood, expressing the stair, and some active design qualities. And really, it's one project, but there's a opportunity to have a little bit of a different character on the creek side and embrace the creek.
The building was kind of, we purposely broke the building up in kind of 3 buildings with these gaskets. And so the main intersection is the kind of the hybrid important home. As Mark said, it's civic presence because it's the one that people are going to see the most. And we've tied in similar materials on all of them, so they tie together. And then on this image here, the goal here was that it is a front, it's a residential front on the upper levels, and the more window and glazing that we can have with the interaction between the people who live there and the people in the park. And you can see we've exposed the idea of exposing the stairs so people can see people coming and going, to really activate, as opposed to having, you know, a building that turns it back to the open space.
And then when we zoom in a little bit, you see some of the details and intent of the storefront. This is back to Main and 7th. So we think this complements downtown and is active. And then this is the pass-through, one of the pass-throughs of the continuation of the alley. And it's very likely we'll be able to have commercial space on both sides, amenities, fill out, a covered area with nice softening and lighting so that this actually creates nice space shoulder seasons, and it's a really nice way to draw people in and through the project, whether they're coming to visit, shop, or whether they live here. And it's also, there's ample parking which is tucked behind out of view, and then this walkway would continue at the alley level through the middle of the parking lot, and then you drive up and over that, kind of like a ramp, back and forth to the parking with trees, for shade and for people in the upper level units to look down upon. On the creek side, we're also looking at activating those uses, so those are those live work units, and you can see those additional landscape, native plantings, seat walls, and walkways, that really allow people to walk in and through, and then as you continue to turn the corner, you can see that sort of activation and vibrancy with the amenity space up above.
So the space between the hotel and the residential at the ground level, the goal there is for the commercial space on the ground level of the residential building can play off the uses and spill out spaces for the hotel. And so that alley is really an active public alley that goes north-south. And I think it'd be a great location for, auxiliary uses that may play off, the hotel or people in the park, an ice cream parlor or something like that.
All right, so that's probably a good enough description. Give it back to Dean to talk a little bit more about some of the numbers.
Thank you, guys. As you can see, these two and their team have been very busy over the past month, putting some great materials together and giving some good insight on what could be a beautiful project. So I have a couple of handouts. I always do. I like to get them back. So these guys get to do all the fun and have the beautiful pictures, and I get to come and do the nitty-gritty of what we're really talking about here. So, the first page talks briefly, or gives a visual briefly about the schedule, the intent of the timeline that we would plan to hit. One of the things I want to jump to is the focus on the hotel portion of this possible project. And we've been engaged by 3 different hotel operators, and through consulting groups that we've talked to, the recommendation is actually do our own RFQ and bring in the right group for the right fit. The reasoning really behind this is to make sure that you don't bring someone in and get to a certain point and figure out that they don't have the capacity, ability, or the true vision of what the community wants. So I'll bring that out front, that our intent would be, if I were to move forward on the project, we would likely go out with an RFQ. We'd like to work with the city and the Urban Renewal Agency to put that document together to go find the right operator for that. Again, we would still remain for our agreement responsible for that. We want to make sure that we bring the right operator in, a developer operator in to take on that area of the project. So the kind of light greenish blue color takes you through the intent of the timeline that we'd like to move forward on, which would basically try and get into ground before the end of this year, develop the project, and then be open and operational before the end of 2022. So doors open on the main first concept. Again, the orangey color being the hotel is very much conceptual right now. The goal that we would meet is have that project in the ground by 2024. The hotels that we talked to, operators we talked to, we want to, of course, move much faster than that. The next 3 documents. The first document, what I wanted to do is highlight the sources and uses of the project. And in bold, you'll see an area that says incentives. So being very transparent. And up front, the budgets that we have a couple of incentives that we would need to work with the city and the Urban Renewal Agency on to make sure for the success of the project. So I wanted to point those out with a quick list at the lower left. Again, I made some assumptions in regards to the dollar amounts associated with those, but I wanted to make sure that I was very much upfront with those are areas that we'd be asking for some assistance for the success of the project. The next 2 documents, as you can see, there's an upper band on both of them. It's confidential. One is red and one is green. The red document is associated, if we took the project as it is right now, look at the financials associated with that document, and then as you flip, you can go through line by line if you really want to, but basically working with general contractor to make sure we understand the cost of the project. The thing I'd like to point out on the top of the second page is what the projected rent opportunities would be for the project. Current rents in the area are between $1 and $1.25. We're projecting to $1.50 a square foot. So we're 15% higher than the market. The area has not seen a 15% growth increase in any of the history that I've been able to acquire. Projects that we've done in Boise have maybe attained 6 to 8% on a good couple of years. So we are being aggressive with that rent schedule. We also are making the units a little bit smaller so that we can be competitive with similar product types. So say there's a one bedroom in the market that's 700 square feet, we may bring it down to 650 so that the rent levels are consistent with what the market is calling for. And then with the professionals that give you guys visuals that are very great in regards to how that space is used, so it's very efficient in the unit itself. You'll see a yellow band on there that points out the estimated property tax. And I put that in there because as we look on to the next one, there'll be a massive difference between the two. So we assume that there's about $130,000 a year of tax will be coming off this property. And then the very bottom line of the numbers, you'll see there's a negative $3 million impact. Basically what this says is upon completion of this project, if the current conditions remain the same, the cost, the rent levels, and the tax structure of the property, it would come out of the gate with a loss of $3 million in value. So it would be very hard for me to go out and find an institution to back it, have an investors back it, for it to be successful long term. Context to that, if you go to the green bar confidential document, you'll see that the tax line item is 0. And the bottom line then becomes a tangible amount. We have taken on projects that are negative in the first year for the future growth of the project. This would be one where we could say, yes, we could see the opportunity and be able to be successful doing that. And speaking with the Urban Renewal Agency staff, it sounds like that's not supported to not be able to pay the tax, but there's a dollar amount there that I'd like to have some consideration on in discussion. Over the next couple of years, until we can see some success in the rent levels, we believe there'll be growth. As you're hearing, there's interest in multifamily in the community right now. There will be growth and success in doing, being able to bring that tax structure back or the cost of that tax back in the future. The other thing I want to point out is the difference between this type of product and a garden style product. As most projects here in close proximity to town are considered garden style, non-elevator served, construction type, as you gentlemen know, are very different in comparison to an urban style project. The cost difference between those is 20 to 25%. There's some densification in terms of products, but there's also materials that we want to be very specific on. You guys have done a very good job in terms of the quality that we want to build into the area. So, I leave this information with you, kind of, sort of. I do want to get it back in some sort of fashion to digest on how best to move forward. Projects with other urban renewal agencies that we're working with currently or worked with before, it is always our intent to be a complete look through the process to find the best solution for the community. So with that said, I put it back with you to make a fairly tough decision of what would be a great opportunity and or direct staff and others and myself to find the best path forward. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Pape?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm probably the dumb one here, so maybe walk me through a little bit on the property tax. So, I mean, are you proposing that the city pay the property tax, that we work to get property tax waived, and then also, is that cumulative? So I'm looking at the bottom line, the numbers. I know in the green one, the residential project value is $942,000. The other one is $813,000, and it's tied to the cap of 5. So just kind of goes, so obviously it's tied it by 5, but just maybe walk through, is that for 5 years? So maybe a little bit more detail on that, please.
I will do my best. So all this really is an example of, is to show as a comparison to our original project, which had some other incentives associated with the way it was financially structured. And one of the abilities of the housing authority was to not have to pay the tax implications. So it was a different structure. I just pulled that area out to say, if there was a way to assist, if there was any way that we could get creative, be it that there's another funding structure for a couple of years until the project is really stabilized, and or assist in talking to the county, which I haven't had the ability to have that conversation yet, because I need some direction if that's something that would be approved by this board. Or is it just, there is a way to help fund that? So it's really just a dollar amount per year, whatever that accounts to. does everyone understand how cap rates work in regards to valuation? It's kind of a reverse of how many times that percentage can go into the value. So you have $100, and how many times does the nickel go into $100? It's not just a direct, dollar amount comparison going in. So the cap rate really takes whatever the rent, the net operating income is, and that percentage of how many 0.0 whatever can go into that number to give you a value. So current properties in Treasure Valley are trading anywhere from 4.5 to 6 or 7 as a cap. So I chose 5 because multifamily is right about a 5 cap right now in terms of trade. That just gives it a value. And that's something that the banks and investors and others are going to look at and say, okay, is this a viable project upon completion? And so that's where these bottom lines come in. So the difference between the two is it really changes that net operating income number. So the NOI on the red one is just over $1 million, 1.06. On the green one, it's almost 1.2. So you're getting more income because of the assistance of not even having to pay the tax or assistance from urban renewal or the city to not have to take on that burden of tax at the time. So it gives you more value at the outset of the project. Does that make sense?
And I do have more questions, but if others have them, I don't wanna take all their. Okay, here we go. I had to write them down, I couldn't get my computer to type them for me. So I guess first one is 5 floors versus 4 floors. On the schematics, it looked like it showed a 5th floor, but obviously the elevations show 4 floors.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 foot 4 floors and 4
I think
floors.
what Tom, Mr. Sheldon was pointing out, if you look at the rendering right now, you notice the first floor is twice as high as all the other floors. So conceptually, it really would be 5 floors in terms of total height, but the floors themselves are only 4. Now, if you go to the other side of the building, it actually comes down. So that area on this floor, where it's a 2-height retail area, on the back side of the building, you actually capture that floor. Mark, could you go back to, say, the first and second floor plans? You might be able to make a better figure by showing kind of the double height areas. Thank you. So if you notice, on the left side is the first floor, and on the right side, the left side first floor, right side second floor. You notice where the X's are on the right-hand side? So those, Mark, could you kind of put a circle around that or put your cursor on it? So that area is double height in terms of retail that's taking on 2 floors, where on the other side of the building, it's an actual floor. So we're putting 2 floors in on one side and 1 on the other side. Retail wants more volume, and the point that Tom was making out is that it could be you could build a mezzanine space in there. It could be a part of an office in there. If you have the volume space to do that.
So you're probably like where those red X's, like an 18-foot.
What are we, 18 to 20?
I'm guessing right there.
Okay. Put a 10-foot floor to floor right now, Tom? Yeah.
Yeah, closer to 20, yeah.
And maybe go forward a couple to where you can kind of see that amenity that's shown on the back side, the creek side, on that 4th, 5th floor area. Any thoughts on what that amenity would be? I know we're still very early, but I mean, is there any?
Most amenities, and Tom and Mark would have a probably much better definition of the opportunities that can go in there. A lot of amenities that we're putting in projects right now are just space. Just the ability to go and have another space outside of your unit to enjoy other company, to engage, to get away. So what's interesting about this one is we actually have 2 separate spaces. One's a little bigger than the other one. But it gives the ability for the tenants to go. You could live on the 2nd floor or the 1st floor, for example, 1st and 2nd, and you could go up to the top floor, enjoy the views, enjoy the outside, enjoy those areas instead of having just your own unit. So we don't really know what they're going to become, likely a barbecue of some sort area, communal gathering area. We've talked about some sort of gardening opportunity. Mark would probably jump all over that one. But really that's programming that we want to work with the marketing team to figure out what's best.
Next question is the garbage dumpsters. Obviously, they're going away. Where is the plan to relocate those?
The garbage dumpsters for Burns,
No, that's actually for the whole downtown, the ones that next to Burns, but all the downtown businesses actually use, well, most of them use those, so I just wondering where.
I don't know, it's the first I've heard of it, but I do know we have some creative solutions. We actually did a communal garbage, collection area in Boise. We put it inside one of the buildings, so the entire block uses it, so they access it, you know, in the alleyway, they access it, so that originally every block, every property had their own, right? They would just sit along the alley. So we went ahead and cleaned it up, we put it into one building, and then they all joined together, they all paid the bill together, they all agreed to the services and how that's gonna work. So I'm not sure what the solution is, but we can find one.
Yeah, 'cause I know that's how it is now, where there's a code you punch in for each business, and they put it in, so I'm just curious where that was headed to. Next question, so Seventh Avenue, I know that there's plans and, things being in the works now to turn that into a festival street. So how would that affect this project, especially with those commercial there planned along Seventh and losing the parking also there?
Sure. I would be concerned. I would love to hear more feedback in regards to maybe some of the retailers that are interested in being downtown. If they would say, yeah, love the idea of being on a festival street, or you know what, I really wanna make sure my customers can come and park and run right in front of my, facility. I'm a little slighted on the ability to get to, a retail, location, from experience in Portland, which is different in regards to weather. It's probably the biggest condition that changes there. People don't want to travel a long distance. I had the opportunity to work on a project near the water in Portland, where they put, the developer that I worked for, put retail close to the water. It's gonna be great, it's gonna be exciting, we're gonna put a restaurant in. Major failure, because people could not get close enough to that retailer to help them be successful. So I'm a little slighted to that, but you guys have seen great success in blocking some of those streets off and having retail be successful. So I would say probably best thing to do is engage folks that may wanna be there and figure out how they want to be successful, and or keep some flexibility. You know, can it be closed off at certain times, open at certain times?
I'm one of those businesses that doesn't have the frontage on Arthur. So you can ask me if you want. And one last question, so kind of going on your timeline here, the hotel's obviously down the road a ways.
Yep.
So what, I guess, assurances do we have that if, say, we do go all in on this, that, you know, we're in, you get to that point, well, sorry, the hotel's not gonna work, it's out of the picture. What assurances, how do we have that it's gonna
I'm pretty
actually
sure
happen?
I'm on the hook for that. I think the conversation that, I've had with, Mr. Hilton and others, that, you know, there needs to be something that happens, and it needs to be the focus of the commercial element. My goal by going out and doing an RFQ is to also make sure that whoever I bring on board, I put their feet to the fire just as much as mine, right? Make sure that they have the ability, one, and the product that they're gonna put there. It's gonna have an impact on everything else that's around it. So, you know, part of me says, I don't want certain products next to the investment they're putting there, because it could deteriorate. But at the same time, it needs to be an organization that can come in and actually be successful. I'm currently working with 2 other hotel operators. One is interested in coming to this location. And then another one that, the report that was put out about 6 months ago that you guys have seen in regards to, you know, would a hotel be successful, a feasibility study? They're the ones who really recommended, along with others, they recommended go out with an RFQ, and they would help manage that project. I can build hotels, I can't run them. I'm not the best person to ask if it's gonna be successful or not. So I think my feet would be to the fire, and I keep looking at Mr. Hilty to have him nod, so yeah, we make sure that he's feet to the fire. But I would have my feet to the fire, and I'd wanna bring the person in to have their feet to the fire too.
That's all my questions for now, Chair, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Pepper?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Rose.
The residential, portion of this, are we talking owners, or are we talking investors that buy the space and then rent it out?
Sorry, no, when I talk about investors, I'm talking about an investor or investor pool that own it as a whole, so it's a for rent, it's apartments that say. But I bring investors into my projects, so that's when I was talking about investors, so they're all for rent with the plan.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna get to you next, so, go ahead.
Thanks, Dean. Just a couple questions on I'm looking at the green spreadsheet. I'm not a spreadsheet guy, but to what you calculated in there, it looks like there's 2 things that jump out at me. One is the $2 million incentive group. that the agency would have to figure out how to do that, and I appreciate your candor on that, but then also, the property tax is reduced to zero, so there would have to be a way to pay that property tax, and maybe Commissioner Wagner asked this, and I didn't follow it, how long a period of time is calculated here, in these last two sheets, the green
This
sheet?
is a snapshot in time upon completion, so it doesn't look, years in advance. And we would have to come up with some comfortable position where everyone say, hey, if rent levels get to a certain level, or if the NOI comes to a certain level, or hey, you know what, if we draw a line in the sand and say NOI, anything above that needs to go towards that tax payment, or whatever, until such time as it's feasible and moves forward to success.
But it would be a series of years,
I would believe so.
potentially, yeah.
Crazy things have happened, right? Like rents have grown, and we could surprise ourselves and come out of the chute and say, wow, we beat what we assumed, even though I think these are pretty aggressive rents. I've been surprised.
Right. That helps, I get it. And then one more question, on the incentive that has to do with the land, you've got a $600,000 figure there. We haven't had it appraised yet, I'm assuming it's gonna come in at zero, and maybe negative. Does this $600,000 assume we're at a zero on the land transfer?
It's on both sides. So I have 600 there as a cost and 600 as a credit. So it washes itself out. So the very, like the third line on the first side, you'll see there's land cost, 600,000. So I go down.
Let's assume we've got a zero reuse appraisal, then that 600 goes away. So we're talking more like 1.4. Okay. That's all the questions I had. I just, Mr. Chairman, I would say if the agency wants to consider these incentives, where it's gonna take some time to do, we can't commit to that, obviously, tonight. And so, we're to figure out if that's feasible, where it comes from, and those types of things. So just a word of caution as you deliberate.
I think one thing, Mr. Hale, I would point out is those are all estimated costs. So they're estimated impact, the estimated permit fees. Those can be drastically different depending on coordination with the city and the cost of those.
Mr. Oki, I do have another question for you, and that regards the thought of having a separate RFQ, by Mr. Pape's group for the hotel site. Is that in conflict with anything we have in the urban renewal RFP process?
No.
So that'd be just fine?
Yeah, and he's right, and I, as he was talking about it, I was kind of trying to look at the numbers, but that was what we had talked about, was that Chase would be signing on for the responsibility to get that done. They would be passing that responsibility along to somebody who does the hotel component of it. There's no problem with that from a legal standpoint.
Sounds good. Mr. Wagner, yes.
Thank you. Just a couple follows, kind of going off, I appreciate Mr. Hilty's comments there. So just to make sure that I'm seeing this like I think I am, so impact fees, that would be like Parks and Rec, police, fire impact fees being waived by the city, correct?
However we negotiate that between the urban renewal and the city, but the hope would be I've put a sizable conservative number in here for the permit and impact fees. If there's a way that we can be successful negotiating those down, that would be correct.
And then the permit fees, that would be like the building permit fee, planning and zoning review fee, things like that. I was trying to think if there's any outside fees that then we would have to pay rather than waive, but I think those would be all the in-house fees. Is that correct?
Okay. Ms. Mitchell, do you want to weigh in? I know you need time to look at the numbers and all that stuff. I don't know if there's any questions you might have at this point.
No, I think a lot of that.
You can track me down.
Yeah.
We'll find you, okay. All right.
Property tax one is the most glaring one for me right now.
Yeah, and that's one we have little control over, so that's the biggest challenge, so, yeah. We'll have to see what our opportunities are there. So if I'm hearing everything right, I think obviously we have to do some homework on this stuff, Mr. Pape, and so I don't think we'll be able to take action tonight, yea or nay, but, hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly in the next couple of weeks and see where we're headed and what looks good, so. Any other questions or any other concerns or anything that the commission wants staff to pursue in regards to this before we get together again?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is there any discussion about the city dedicating any more parking than what is inside the structure for the use of the hotel or the outside merchants?
But we've always talked about having, other, parking opportunities in the lots that are nearby within a block or two. Is that what you mean, Mr. Aldridge?
Well, yes, I mean, I know all those are available. Is there any agreement to dedicate those to say, this parking lot is for hotel only, this parking lot is for apartment only? Has there been any discussion that we would, restrict that parking?
Are there any assumptions in that, in your plan for that? No, nothing, okay. So, I think it's gonna be a need and a demand sort of, response we'll have to have on that as well.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think that it can be figured out fairly easily, but I think there's some discussion to be had around that.
I mean, we're already working towards more parking opportunities nearby, and so, well, if they will come, we'll build it.
Sounds good.
How's that? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, this is Garrett.
Mr. Nancolis.
Mr. Pape and group, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. I just wanted to go back and address one of the, I think, questions that Mr. Wagner had, and just to clarify one thing. Yes, we have begun the process of taking a look at 7th Street, but to be honest with you, that is, the goal would be to work with Mr. Pape and his group. If we were to do something on 7th Street to make that more beautiful pedestrian mall type concept or not, there's a lot to be, discovered yet there. So Dean, I don't want you to think that there's anything locked in there on that concept. Yes, it is a discussion, but we haven't seen any design work or anything there. And of course, because of your project, we would certainly make sure that if there was something there that Urban Renewal chose to do, that you would be in lockstep with us the entire way. We wouldn't want to build something that would impede your project, nor would we want to do something that would discourage retail there if it wasn't done properly. And then the second thing, that's just for clarification, the other piece on Festival Street itself, the extension of Arthur, I just wanted to make sure that that was not included in your costs, because that is something the city is contemplating building, finishing that out, and so I just wanted to make sure that you had not included that anywhere in your cost of construction.
We did not, although I wish we had, and that I could pull it out and say we saved more money, but no, we did not.
Okay, well, thank you, I just wanted to clarify those couple of minor points, and, thank you again for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay,
One question I
Go
do
ahead.
have, Mr. Humphrey, do we need to, if there's going to be additional time needed, talk about an extension amendment of sorts? I know we're good until Monday, and it's a holiday, and I'm not worried about it, we'll just work in good faith that we're gonna move forward and find the best solution. I just wanna make sure that we discuss.
Yeah, fair enough, and just, we don't have a document or anything tonight, they meet a month from now, so we haven't get in that, we're gonna be a month down the road, we haven't.
I've got a document template.
Right, so if you're comfortable with that, what I would just advise the agency is, if you want staff to look at this, I mean, we've got some hard numbers now, between now and the next meeting, we can do that. I guess the alternative would be pull the plug tonight, or a special meeting, correct?
Yeah. So, in order to consider this for the next meeting, we would need a motion, from the commission to, continue our engagement with the Chase for the next month, to the next meeting at least, to evaluate the proposal and whether or not it can be funded and viable. Does that sound reasonable? Moved by Mr. Wagner, second by Mr. Porter to take that action. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like it's good to go. Thank you, Mr. Pape.
Appreciate it. Do you want to pick these up? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to new business, and, Ms. Mitchell, our invoices for February. Time is flying.
You know, it certainly is. We're almost into halfway through our fiscal year, aren't we? A couple things before I go into new business item number one. Next Tuesday night, I will be presenting to council to ask for a public meeting to be held at our next meeting to go over the annual activities report that we're required by statute to hold. So at council next Tuesday night, I will ask for that public meeting to take place on our March 8th meeting. So that will be coming for you. Our annual audit report is complete, so we will be presenting that as well at our March meeting, so you'll have the presentation of the annual audit. So with that, I will go into action item business number 1 to request the authorization for $2,127,979.83 in expenses. They are breaking out by the following. To the City of Caldwell, $18,000 for February economic development. Legal fees to Mr. Hilty and his firm of $6,500. Some final costs to finalize the audit to ideally for $410. Canyon County for some property taxes at Kimball and 711 Cleveland for $125.35. Pay request number 5 for the Fair Expo site for improvements of $24,202.47. Annual trustee fee of $2,000 for our 2012 bond. And then the City of Caldwell reimbursement for the North Ranch project of $1,835,108.73. Reimbursement to the City of Caldwell for Lions Park restroom. I think these are the finalized costs, Mr. Orton. I'm hoping, $30,131.78. City and Caldwell for general operating costs. These are for some of the rental property costs that we've had for October through December for $11,501.40. And then BIG payment number 4 to ANFAC for $25,000. BIG payment number 5 to Fresca Foods for $25,000. And then the commitment we made to Trilogy for the A-Drain relocation out there at Sky Ranch for $150,000. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Ms. Mitchell? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the invoices for the month of February. Moved by Ms. Warwick.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wagner. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we got the invoices approved. That takes us now to an invoice for ratification. Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, this is for ratification of $25,000. This is to Wellco Land Company. This is to exercise and extend our option over here on the Blaine Street and Kimball property. It's the parking lot behind the Cleveland Event Center. That's tied to an RFP that we currently have. So that's just to extend that one.
Any questions on that one for Ms. Mitchell? Entertain a motion then to approve that ratification of that invoice.
So,
Moved by Mr. Ramirez, second by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, treasurer's report.
Okay, we're spending money. So tonight you have before you the treasury report. Currently we have $17,323,278.19, broken down into the 3 accounts. Your LGIP account of $116,453.24. The Banner Bank CD of $250,380.49. And then your operating account is $16,955,424.46. And that Banner Bank account is broken down into the following categories. We have restricted for other projects and other taxing districts of $12,470,246.21. Restricted for the City of Caldwell for our projects of $3,518,873.81. And then our restricted rental income off the TBCC property of $746,839.86. And then restricted for the job creation, this is where we paid the BIG incentives out of $219,464.58. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions for Ms. Mitchell? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the cash report.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Wagner, second by Mr. Porter to approve the cash report for February. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
aye.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Hilty, report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the new area, the north area, I did learn today, as you know, well, just to back up, we've been reevaluating that urban renewal area based on the feasibility of bringing the size of utilities, both electricity and natural gas, to the area that industrial users would need. It's far more expensive than what was originally contemplated. Mr. Waite has been in the process of updating that feasibility study to see what could be done there, and he has some updated numbers I learned today. And so I'll be talking with him about that this week, but presumably we'll have him come and present on the feasibility to the economic team next Monday morning. Hopefully it works, and Steve can address this better, but every time we meet as an economic team, he talks about potential users for that area. If we can get the infrastructure there's some great opportunities there to replicate perhaps what we've done at Sky Ranch. And so we're hopeful that'll work, and we'll be working hard to see if we can't get there with that. Any questions on the north area?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Board.
Mr. Hilton, what creates the big trauma in getting the services out there?
Brent has been involved in those conversations, so if I don't do it right, Brent, you can kind of clean up.
I'd rather hear from you.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Whether it's accurate or not, it is pleasant coming from Brent. It has to do with the distance that would have to be traversed. I think for gas, it was 8 miles, to get the size of pipe there, that would be necessary for those industrial users. So it's the distance, frankly, that has to go, and then the size of the transmission pipe or lines. And then was there an issue with the substation?
I'm not exactly sure about if there's a substation involved, but I think you nailed it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, thank you for ratifying the extension on the option agreement for Rick Wells' property on the corner of Blaine and Kimball. That project is moving along, and we ran into a difficulty. We knew when we took the option on that property, there was some environmental contamination. It's petroleum contaminated, it's an old gas station. Rick has been working to clean that up, and I think he's been making progress. It's taking longer than we thought that it would, and I've been monitoring that with Rick. He's been responsive. I think he's doing what he can. He does remain confident that we'll get there. When we originally entered the option agreement a year ago, we paid an option price of $25,000 for the first year. We're now into the second year. So with this payment, we have until February of 2022. All of that money goes toward the purchase price should the agency exercise the option. We're just not quite ready to close, based on where we're at, and I think we can have a higher level of confidence if we give it a little bit more time. So that was the thought process that went into that. As I think I previously reported to you, it was slowing progress on the rebuilding of that Cleveland Event Center by Mike Muscle. We found a workaround, I think, just Friday and today, where we're going to approach the city about leasing to Muscle a parking lot that's across Cleveland, so it's sort of across the street from the Cleveland Event Center. And we're going to lease it to him on a long-term basis. I mean, basically until we get this site cleaned up and ready for redevelopment. Hopefully that will be a number of months. It might be longer, but with the assurance of the long-term lease, he's now ready to go forward. So he would presume, this is just unfolding now. So some of these details could change, but I think the way it's going to wind up going forward is he will close on the Cleveland Event Center itself, but not the adjoining parking lot. The city will then give him the lease, the parking across the street, and he will start going. He is anxious to go now and get that done, and that's all obviously a great sign. We want to work with him and facilitate that to the extent we can. So stay tuned. I'll have certainly a more detailed update for you at the next meeting. I frankly am hopeful at this point we will have a closing on that Cleveland Event Center prior to your next meeting. So be aware of that. The resolutions you've already passed sort of authorize the city to go forward on that, or the staff, sorry, to go forward on that. So that's exciting, that we found a workaround, and we will continue to work with Rick and IDEQ on, getting some kind of restricted covenant or clean bill of health on that parking lot property, so that too can be transferred and redeveloped. That concludes my report. Are there questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Hilton? I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I don't have anything to report other than what you've heard tonight. There's lots of activities going on, obviously, and lots of, challenges ahead of us, but, we're working through them one at a time, so. Any commissioners have, anything to add? Mr. Allgood? Who's on mute? Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, just for, it really is so nice to be back, with everybody, and it's time, and I'm excited, so. You think it'd be nicer to be at home with your PJs, but I'd much rather be here with all of you in person, so it's great.
I'm glad you're not here.
Yeah. I might have been on time maybe if I could.
Mr. Ramirez? Anything, Mr. Porter or Ms. Warwick? All right. If there's nothing else, I'm interested in a motion to adjourn. So moved. Moved by Mr. Wagner, second by Mr. Ramirez? Sure. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are done.
Goodbye.
Is there any way to get like word installed on these or something? Cause I like this type, you can tell when people are talking, like questions they have. But I couldn't find anything like.
There should be notepad or WordPad, there should be notepad or WordPad.